Hey guys, in this video I'll be ranking body parts in bodybuilding by importance according to current day standards. Now, first off, I don't want to claim that this is an original idea because I have seen other YouTubers like Tominator do things like this before. However, I feel as though the importance of certain muscle groups has changed from then till now. For some background, S tier is going to be reserved for the muscles that I think are integral to the judging criteria, basically the body parts that you really need today. A tier is like a strongly suggested to have, but not necessarily required, and B tier is sort of you could have them, but you can do well without them as well. C and D tier are sort of self-explanatory, and do let me know in the comments down below what you think of this video. With that all being said, let's get into this ranking video. Starting off this video, we have the traps. Now, the traps are definitely an intriguing muscle group to rank, as their importance can be a bit underrated in the overall conversation about top-tier bodybuilding muscle groups. You'd be right in noting that the traps don't really get a lot of attention from the front or the side, but they do make a significant impact from behind and in the poses like the crab most muscular. A well-developed set of traps can really set a competitor apart from the rest, enhancing the rear double bicep pose and the rear lat spread, and contributing to the freak factor in the most muscular. While the traps do play an important role in showcasing overall back thickness and muscle density, especially from behind, they don't really have the same level of impact that muscles like the back, chest, or legs do. And by back, I just mean the back overall. In modern bodybuilding, having ultra-developed traps isn't considered as essential as having full detailed lats or massive quads, and it really goes to show you that they aren't super focused on. Now, this is partly because the emphasis has shifted somewhat, I guess you could say, towards the proportion and the symmetry aspect over the raw muscle size in certain areas. Now, when we look at the current lineup, it's true that we don't really have competitors who have the same level of awe-inspiring trap development as, guys like Phil Heath or Dexter Jackson. Those two did have traps that kind of popped out from the front and the back, adding to their dominance and visual impact, and I'm sure there's many others that you guys can think of. Now, modern competitors often focus more on the overall flow and the aesthetics, rather than that sheer awe-inspiring size of the traps. Given that traps are mostly highlighted from behind and can add a lot of depth and density to the back, I do agree with placing them in B tier. They're definitely valuable and contribute to a very impressive overall physique, but they're not as crucial as other muscle groups like the back overall, or the chest or the legs from the overall competitive success currently. Plus, in the current era of bodybuilding, traps don't really create the same wow factor as they did in the past, and I would say this definitely also solidifies them in B tier. Next up are the glutes, and this one is interesting. In recent years, it seemed as if bodybuilding was moving towards the direction of ultra-shredded glutes over all else, with judges and critics placing heavy emphasis on the importance of sliced and diced lines. To be fair, diced glutes were a clear indicator of peeled conditioning, which makes sense as to why they were so prized. That said, you can, now look at the current lineup of the Mr. Olympia, and out of the top 5, only 2 competitors have razor-sharp glutes, which even excludes our current Mr. Olympia, Samson Dauda. Even more interesting is that the guy with the sharpest glutes up there, being Derek Lunsford, doesn't even have great condition everywhere else, almost debunking the idea that cut glutes are a sign of top-tier condition. What this means is that the judges seem to care less and less about having that tight plastic wrap skin, and more so about the total physique and the way everything harmonizes. I think that I'd put the glutes into the B tier because of this, because it definitely helps to have them and can complete a lower body and add wow factor to certain shots. However, if your reigning champion doesn't have them, then do they even really matter all that much? Okay, next we have the forearms, and honestly, when was the last time you really saw a great pair of forearms in open bodybuilding? I can't really think of a competitor in the top 10 who has a standout pair. The only competitor I can think of would be Ramon Dino, who has ridiculously impressive forearms relative to the rest of his body. However, he's a classic physique competitor, and they arguably hinder him more than they could ever benefit. Honestly, forearms are really impressive when the right bodybuilder has them. Think of legends like Phil Heath, Lee Priest, or even Dorian Yates, who all had forearms that matched and even enhanced their upper arms. Nowadays, forearms are barely talked about when it comes to judging, and it's probably because we focus more on the overall package rather than the individual body part. For that reason, I'd put them in C tier, because currently nobody seems to care. However, I would love to see them in A or B tier in the future. The lower back, or the Christmas tree region, is a niche yet cool thing to rank for the more hardcore bodybuilding fans. Just to point out, I'm talking about the Christmas tree or the lower back in the transition of the pose, not necessarily in the pose itself. Also, if you guys know whose Christmas tree it is in the picture, let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, this area is probably not too important today, and that does reflect in the bodybuilders that we see currently. There genuinely is not a single competitor in the top 10 who has a legendary status of a Christmas tree. Either, they don't have the lat striations, they hold too much water in that area, or they literally lack a lower back. I'm thinking of competitors like Akeem Williams who win pro shows yet are missing half of their back. I will point out that there are some competitors who have very solid Christmas trees, like Hunter Labrada, who is very underrated in this area. However, in general, it seems to be underappreciated by the judges. I do think B tier is where it does belong because it's definitely not necessary. However, I'm sure it adds a bit of wow factor to the pose if you have a great lower back. Now, the back as a whole is definitely essential for placing well at the highest level of competition, and it's one of those areas where it can really make a physique complete. When you look at the top 10 at the Olympia, nearly all the competitors had strong backs, with those in the top 5 having exceptional thickness, detail, and overall balance. A prime example of the back's critical role is definitely when you take a look at Samson Dauda. For years, Samson struggled with what many would call a weak back, you could say, compared to his other muscle groups at least, and this was often cited as a barrier for his success on stage by many critics and judges and fans. That said, when he finally brought up his back development and combined it with improved condition, he was able to make a major leap and ultimately win the Olympia this year. This really showcases just how transformative a strong back can be. It really changes the perception of the whole physique and can elevate a competitor from being just good to great. Now, when you examine Martin or Derek, who are the youngest members of the current top 5, it's clear that their backs are among the most impressive that we've seen in a very long time. Their backs have it all really. I mean, the thickness, the width, detail, and symmetry. They exhibit all kinds of completeness in their backs, and it really does set them apart from their competition, and also cements their status as top competitors. Also, the back is necessary not only for aesthetic appeal, but also for scoring well in essential poses like the rear double and the rear lat spread. It helps create the X-frame look when viewed from the front, and is also very crucial for adding depth and balance to the overall physique. Given the current trend of judges prioritizing overall balance over size and, stuff like that, the back is definitely now more important than ever when it comes to securing a top spot. And based on these factors, I would say that the back as a whole is firmly in the S tier. It's indispensable for any competitor aiming for the highest level of success, and is arguably the most impactful muscle group in determining a competitor's final standing at some of the biggest competitions. I'm sure many of you would agree that the back is without a doubt an S tier muscle group in today's landscape, but do let me know in the comments down below if you guys disagree. The arms are an interesting category, and you guys might find my ranking a bit controversial. Now, they are undoubtedly a crucial part of a well-rounded physique. However, they don't really hold the same level of dominance or standout quality as in the past, or as other muscle groups like the back, chest, or legs in today's lineup. For instance, in the current top 4, none of the competitors have what you would call God tier or even really A tier arms. It's true that most top bodybuilders have good arms, obviously they must, and you can spot some impressive triceps or biceps here and there. However, a truly world-class set of arms is definitely rare. When we look at standout competitors like Hunter Labrada, Andrew Jacked, and Nick Walker, their arms certainly contribute to their overall impressive physiques, but they also have some major weaknesses. Whether it's a lack of symmetry, a less than ideal shape, or simply not matching the level of detail and proportion seen in their other body parts, it does prevent them from truly excelling. Even Martin or Samson, who I don't really think have amazing arms, can still be seen as having arms that meet the basic criteria today: decent completeness, no glaring weaknesses, and good flow with the rest of their physique. This makes them competitive, but not exceptional in this area. In essence, the era of seeing freakishly massive, perfectly proportioned arms seems to have passed, replaced by a more balanced and refined look, where the arms are just one part of the whole picture, rather than being a standout attribute. And given that the arms no longer possess the jaw-dropping, standalone power that they once did in the past, it does make sense to place them in B tier now. They're important for completeness and overall aesthetics, no doubt, but they don't really hold as much of an edge as other muscle groups like the back or chest, or even the legs in terms of the competitive impact. What do you guys think though? Do you guys agree? Let me know in the comments. Now, the quads, unlike the arms, are incredibly important to creating a well-rounded physique. This is because from the front, they almost make up half of your body, bow out to balance your upper half, And if you really have great, well-developed quads, their sweeping lines and refined cuts really add a touch of excellence. Look at Samson, Hadi, Martin, Andrew, and Hunter, all competitors at the highest level who have some top-tier quads. Notably missing is Derek Lunsford, who has some of the weakest quads out of an Olympia winner due to his underwhelming outer sweep. This year, he dropped from first to third, a clear message from the judges that you need to have good upper to lower body balance to win the title. This year, he was considerably smaller in the legs, which is one of the main reasons as to why I think he lost. The same thing can be said about Hadi, who really brought the best quads to the Arnold, yet let us down a bit at the Olympia. Had he brought immense fullness and symmetrical size, he would have probably done enough to win the Olympia again this year. So due to the quads being an important muscle that contributes to the overall balance of one's physique, along with them being a rather large muscle as well, leads them to ranking in S tier. Hamstrings are a bit of a debate since one could argue for them being in S tier. Personally, hamstrings are very important and complete any side or rear shot, being just as necessary as any other main body part. The thing is, the judges seem to not care too much about them compared to years prior. Currently, there are only a handful of top competitors with dugout, really tremendous hamstrings from all angles. You have guys like Martin Fitzwater and Nick Walker, who have some of the most complete hamstrings and do get rewarded, yet you also have guys like Andrew Jack who easily have the worst hamstrings at the highest level, and they still get rewarded. Even a guy like Derek Lunsford, who won the Olympia in 2023, has almost a lackluster hamstrings from behind, and it truly seems as if the judging criteria doesn't focus as much on the shredded, fully developed lower body as much as they do on the bone structures, aesthetics, and seamless flows of the competitors' physiques. I do hope that we see some freakishly developed hamstrings on most competitors in the future. However, as it is, I do think that they would land in A tier. Calves are often overlooked but still play a very important role in creating a well-rounded physique. While they don't carry the same level of importance as larger muscle groups, well-developed calves can make a noticeable difference in the overall aesthetics and symmetry of a competitor. Unfortunately, calf development is notoriously difficult to get, and even top competitors often have underwhelming calves compared to their other muscle groups. Few bodybuilders today have very impressive calves that do stand out on stage, so while they do contribute to a very complete look, they don't have the same impact as other muscles. For that reason, I would say that calves land in C tier because the judges don't really care about them all too much, nor do the competitors. However, I do think they are important, and I would love to see them, get up to that A tier category, and I would love to see all the competitors have really good calves. Up next is the midsection, and I wholeheartedly believe that this is the most important muscle group in modern bodybuilding, and certainly deserves S tier. Almost everyone in the top 10, apart from William Bonac and Hunter Labrada, have trim, well-refined, or incredibly well-developed midsections. Most can even pull vacuums as well, and many have well-defined abs or tiny waistlines relative to their frames. It does make sense as to why the midsection is so important now. After all, it's the center point of the body. However, I think we see more emphasis on it today due to the bubble gut frenzy of the 2010s. Finally, we are in that era where vacuums and trim waists are the norm, which is something many probably would have never imagined as a possibility 10 years ago. I don't think there's much else to say since aesthetic, well-proportioned midsections are rewarded, while guts and wide waistlines are being penalized more and more. Shoulders are one of those muscle groups that may not always steal the spotlight, but are crucial to creating a well-balanced and aesthetic physique. It's true that at the highest level, we don't have competitors with truly jaw-dropping, iconic shoulders like Kevin Levroni's or Phil Heath's cannonball delts. However, nearly every top-level bodybuilder now has an impressive set, which is a testament of how universally important this muscle group is in my opinion. Shoulders play a significant role in broadening the upper body, contributing to an enhanced X-frame look in certain poses that can make the physique appear more powerful and symmetrical. For example, competitors like Martin and Derek have shoulders that are incredibly shredded and detailed and dry, which adds a very impressive level of refinement and texture. Meanwhile, you have guys like Samson or Hadi, who possess shoulders with fantastic shape and roundness that contribute to the overall aesthetic and balance. While you could make a strong case for shoulders landing in B tier, I would argue that they deserve an A tier placing. The reason for this is that although there might not be any competitors with, the sheer size and definition that we've seen from past competitors, the vast majority of current, bodybuilders today have pretty good shoulders overall. This makes shoulders slightly more impactful than other muscle groups in the B tier in my opinion, so placing them in A tier just feels justified to me. The last body part to consider is the chest, and I firmly believe it deserves an A tier ranking. Much like the shoulders, the chest is a muscle group where many competitors excel in specific areas, but nobody seems to check off every box required for a truly world-class chest. For example, Hadi Choopan boasts one of the most deeply strided and detailed chests in the sport today. His chest is practically carved out of stone, and the sharp lines and all the deep cuts just shine under the stage light. This level of detail is great and all, however, it comes at the expense of the fullness, which can make his chest appear less imposing in certain shots. On the other hand, Samson Dauda showcases a chest that is thick, dense, and very powerfully padded, giving him a very commanding stage presence when, it's showcased. That said, despite its size, Samson's chest lacks the intricate striations and sharp definition that you see on a guy like Hadi. Then we have someone like Andrew Jacked, who might be the closest thing to achieving the perfect balance. When he's dialed in, his chest possesses an incredible combination of fullness, detail, and that elusive pop that draws the eye in virtually every pose that it's showcased in. This makes Andrew's chest arguably the most well-rounded and underrated amongst the rest of the competition. Overall, the chest is really only highlighted in a handful of the poses, and I feel like the judges don't really care all that much. They definitely do care, and it definitely helps, of course, but it's not, S tier level. So I just think it would maybe fall into the A tier. Do let me know in the comments though down below, where would you have the chest falling into? And that about does it for this video, guys. Do let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this tier list, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.